Good morning.
Everyone all ready to go? Well, what a beautiful Brisbane day to be at South Bank. If you love Brisbane, then you love South Bank. I was just thinking, I was a few years too young to really enjoy Expo 88 properly, but some of my best memories of exploring Brisbane as a teenager start here at South Bank, meeting friends here, watching River Fire here, and then, of course, as I had my own kids, bringing them along to the beach and the pools and the playgrounds. We really had such a great time exploring the city, basing ourselves from here at South Bank and using the public transport from here. And of course we were all just here, many of us anyway, when we heard the news that Brisbane would host the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2032. And so we've asked Queenslanders what it is that they love about South Bank. They love its connection to the river, they love its beaches and open spaces and the bougainvillea-lined boulevards. And in putting together a master plan for the future of South Bank, we're determined to deliver to Queenslanders, deliver to visitors more of what we know they love and more of what they've told us they want to see. More open green spaces to enjoy, more connection to our First Nations history, greater access to active travel connecting the city. This is our plan to deliver an even better South Bank. South Bank, of course, is central to our vision for how the city connects and works together, and central to our vision for how we will deliver the Olympic and Paralympic Games. It connects the new Brisbane Arena at the Roma Street end and the planned International Broadcast Centre through past our new theatre at QPAC, our new bridge to Queen's Wharf, Brisbane on the left, and eventually continuing forward to the main Olympic Stadium at the Gabba. Now is your chance for every Queenslander to have their say on this plan. Does this build on what you love about South Bank? What else would you like to see? And in charge of that project is Bill Delves, the CEO of the South Bank Board.
Thank you.
Say something about
Look, I'm just very proud on behalf of my team that we're able to bring this plan together. The plan, as you will see, had 10,000 pieces of public feedback that led into developing this draft. It's something that we're very proud of to be able to bring to the city, and most importantly it gives us a chance to have that conversation, the conversation about ageing assets, the conversation about connecting great projects and great precincts, and the conversation about very much lifting the destination appeal of the city on the way to the Olympics. A great opportunity for everyone to have their say. I encourage you all to have your say. The website will go live today at 10 a.m. and that's futuresouthbank.com.au, and I encourage everyone to have their say. Thank you.
People have had their say and they want to have another say. I'm confused about it.
Yeah, so this is a long process. We want to make sure we get it right. We've asked people and stakeholders for their ideas. We've then put their ideas together into this draft plan, and now people can provide their feedback on the plan.
Outside of the sporting venues, the civic centre is pretty much of the Olympics. How critical is it to get this right?
It's absolutely critical. As I said, we hope that this is how people get between many of our venues, how they enjoy our city when they're not at events. South Bank, World Expo changed Brisbane, and South Bank is, I think, the greatest legacy of that. The Olympic and Paralympic Games, well, that is much, much more than World Expo, but isn't it wonderful to be building upon that legacy of prior events?
South Bank looks pretty great as it is. Like, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Well, South Bank is great as it is. We want it to keep getting better. The assets will age, people's habits and usages will change over that time, and of course our city is changing dramatically. South Bank was built well before Queen's Wharf Brisbane was ever thought about, that extra bridge was ever thought about, before our new theatre here, and of course the new arena that we will build at Roma Street, and the International Broadcasting Centre, and whatever it becomes in legacy mode. So there is so much changing about our city. It's important that South Bank changes with it.
How major are some of these changes? I mean, this pavilion we're in now, I think it's only about 12 months old. So how big are these changes going to be?
Yeah, so this section is quite new. We opened it quite recently, and it's been very much appreciated, very much valued, and that's the kind of thing we want to see over time. This isn't a plan to revolutionise South Bank. It's to continue adding to it, like we have here with this pavilion.
Is there an Indigenous centre planned for South Bank in the future?
Yeah, part of this vision is for cultural recognition here within South Bank that connects nearby cultural sites. I might let Bill talk a bit more about the detail of that.
There's no specific definition of where an Indigenous centre might be, but there is a very important connection. A connection from the river here at this side, at Riverside Green, all the way through to Musgrave Park. It's a very important spine. We've identified through our consultation with the traditional owners and elders, and it's important that we bring that to life in the plan.
So the government's been planning an Indigenous centre for 3 terms now. Is there a site for an Indigenous centre?
Look, at this stage, the intention is for that centre to be in this precinct, but there are still more details to work through.
The Bougainvillea Arbour, will that be extended?
The arbour itself is really the centrepiece of the spine through South Bank. There are 3 major spines here, the Promenade, the Arbour and Grey Street. Each of those gets some attention in the master plan, but the plan itself stays to the 42 hectares of the South Bank Corp area. So that runs from the Maritime Museum at one end to Victoria Bridge at the other.
Could you run us through some of the highlights?
Yeah, happy to. You'll see from some of the images around you, it takes some of the places that are ready for renewal and it retains some of those that the public loves so much. So we listen very carefully to those that are ready for change and those that are ready just merely to be updated or enhanced or retained in their current form. So you'll see Grey Street itself gets some work. That's very important to such an important spine through the city, connecting great venues. And the promenade itself, which is so much loved on the edge of the river here as a very important connector of people around the city and a place you can just meander and walk with your family.
I see Grey Street. That Indigenous spine you were talking about, what's actually planned to recognise that? If you've identified it, what's actually planned to do?
We still will continue to work with the traditional owners and elders on what that may become. It's just an understanding that this was an important creek line through here, and it's represented by the small stream you'll see behind you here today. And that was the start of a conversation, a piece of Indigenous artwork at the top of that small creek line here, and we'll continue to work out how best to represent that as we take this vision forward.
Have they asked for an Indigenous centre at South Bank?
I've not been specifically consulted on that. The Deputy Premier may have more.
Have Indigenous people specifically asked for a First Nations centre?
I know that there is significant interest in a First Nations cultural centre. There are different sites that have been proposed, and so there's still more work to do about where best to locate it.
Just on Grey Street, I suppose creating a cultural hub is more or less tangible, I guess. So how do you make sure that that's good, thriving food scene or cultural scene?
Yeah, I might have.
I think South Bank has that great challenge of being a place for everyone. We try very hard to make this an inclusive place. So making sure there's offerings for people of all demographics, of all socio backgrounds, so that we're really able to provide different things for different people and at different times of the day, night, hot days, dry days. So each of the pieces of South Bank will play their role in delivering on the vision.
I see here on the Grey Street image, it's quite more open, a lot more public space. Are buildings going to have to go?
The images you'll see have no buildings come down. It's just better use of the streetscape. So from edge to edge of the building, we're just starting to propose what a vision might look like that allows for a more walkable city, a more active city, but a city that doesn't ignore cars nor public transport, but tries to find a healthier balance.
What is the timeline? Obviously, the Olympics, puts a bit of a rush on it, but do you need all of these developments, or is the intention to have them all completed in time for the Olympics?
I think the important part is this is a vision. If you think about South Bank itself, we're now 30 years post-Expo. The important is to have that vision for the future. We've tried not to time clock it because there'll be different pressures and imperatives that bring projects forward. And I think we need to continue to work with the community and government to understand what the timing of those pressures might be. And the time will be right for certain projects. And we'll just continue to work to make sure they work symbiotically with that vision.
So it's unrealistic to expect that everything we see here today can be completed in time for the Olympics?
I think, again, as a vision, it's something that there are so many people, so many parts of South Bank that people already love. So we'll tread carefully. We won't rush this process, but we will continue to make sure, as was said earlier, that people continue to love the place and it has that destinational appeal that brings national visitors and global visitors and really puts that brand of the city out there for the world to see.
On the topic of an inclusive parkland, do you think it should be illegal for homeless people to sleep in South Bank? And what do you say to concerns that homeless people who try to sleep in South Bank are harassed by security guards rather than being linked in with support services?
Well, I take as a first principle that if people are doing things that most of us would do in homes, then they're not committing crimes, they are homeless. And so if they're sleeping rough, if they're drinking in public, if they are urinating in public, then the problem is that they don't have a home to live in. And I would prefer to see intervention services that take them to services and deliver them to shelter.
Are you confident that that's happening at South Bank at the moment?
That's certainly what I would support.
I suppose, but there's an idea for a Gondwana water tree drops here. What can you tell me about that?
It was one of the great ideas that the public brought forward, which was to try and get better use of the rainforest, to see it from different perspectives. So it was trying to better understand the stories that can be told on the ground, whereas at the same time the perspective you might get from above. I think we do the same thing with the eye, give the different impressions of South Bank from different perspectives.
So do you have to bring additional trees in, or would you use the...
I think you'll notice from this small facility here that we opened this piece of parkland here at Riverside Green, we brought in thousands of trees to update this space, and we'll continue to do that across the precinct where it's appropriate. So there'll be greater densification in some areas, but in other areas we'll open up for people to be able to play.
What's the annual budget for public works here?
The budget is a combination of monies that we generate ourselves. We generate monies from the convention centre, the car parks and the retail that we control and own. And that, in conjunction with our collaboration with the state, delivers what you see here today, and that covers all of the beautiful social aspects and at the same time allows us to reinvest in renewal.
What is that usually annually?
I'm happy to provide you that number afterwards. I don't have that with me.
So there's no price tag essentially on the projects that we see before us today?
No, this is a plan, and in future budgets we'll allocate funding to deliver on the plan.
And are any of them prioritised? Are there any that you foresee would be the first ones that you might want to tackle?
No, not yet. We want to go through this consultation with the public and with stakeholders, settle on the plan, and then we can start to work out how over time we'll roll it out.
A parliamentary committee has recommended decriminalising public intoxication and public urination offences and all of that. What do you make of that? Is that something the government will consider?
Well, first of all, the Parliamentary Committee has done very good work, and I welcome the work that they have done. The government will consider their report and make a public response. But what I said earlier to the question we had regarding homeless people here at South Bank really represents my view and my position on the matters that the Parliamentary Committee has looked at. If people are doing things in public that you would normally do in a home, then most times they aren't committing a crime, they're lacking a home. And our response should be to divert them into homelessness services rather than to put them into watch houses. Now the Parliamentary Committee's made their recommendations, we will take them on board in determining a government position.
How concerned are you about the risk of COVID cases increasing over the course of the year?
Oh, look, obviously we're concerned about any illness and the fact that any illness will spread through our community in different ways at different times. What we have right now is a very, very low level of COVID. I think we have just about 85 people in our public hospitals. That's a very historically low number for the post-opening of borders period. So 85 in our public hospitals, 16 in private hospitals, just 770 new cases and about 4,500 active cases. Now that we are managing the virus in the community, we should expect to see those numbers ebb and flow, but right now we're at a very low level.
Will the health system be prepared to deal with an influx of patients?
Our health system right throughout has been prepared for every scenario. Our epidemiologists are now very, very good at projecting based on the current recent experience where cases will head to, and our hospitals are able to manage to those levels. But of course, as we all know, the health system continues to battle to recover from the impacts of those big waves, and that will continue while we also prepare to see more cases of this and more cases of other viruses that circulate within our community every year.
The Diamonds Netball Club, I think that the team's about to play in Brisbane. Do you have any concerns over them wearing Visit Melbourne jerseys when they come to Queensland? And would you hope to try and attract them for games here?
Of course, we'd love to see all of our teams playing more of their games here in Queensland and in Brisbane. We should expect to see that between now and the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. I think it's great, though, that the Victorian government have stepped in to provide that financial support and that sponsorship. We certainly sponsor lots of events ourselves, and that promotes us into other states. And so I think it's just good that they found themselves a sponsor.
Any concern though that it says Visit Melbourne and they're a national team?
Not at all. You know, when we hosted the AFL Grand Final here in Queensland, we proudly had the Visit Queensland logo on the Gabba field projected into Victoria, and I'm sure at that time, in the middle of lockdown, they all wanted to visit Queensland. I think that's why most of them are here now. So this is how we all promote our states and our tourism industries. There's nothing wrong with it.
You referenced the Brisbane Arena a couple of times. Any update on getting it? Who's going to build it?
Not at this stage. We're still working through the process for both Brisbane Arena and the Gabba to answer a few of those key threshold questions that need to be determined before we can proceed to that level of detail.
Just harking back to your previous portfolio, at the DNA inquiry this week, we've heard evidence from the managing scientist referencing an audit office report that $1.2 million was reduced from the forensic DNA budget over 5 years. Can you shed any light on the budget situation for that unit? And were there budget considerations or discussions happening when you were health minister?
I can't, no. As a government, we allocated ongoing substantial increases to operating funding for the entire department. How that then was allocated between units were operational matters for the management of the department. And certainly, as I've said before, none of the concerns about thresholds for forensic testing were ever raised with me as Minister.
You mentioned the work back to the Indigenous Centre. You said there were a couple of other sites that would be considered. Can you shed some light on what those other sites might be?
Not
I'm only asking because it goes back to Peter Beattie's days, as you know.
I know and I understand, and I'm a passionate supporter of us better recognising our First Nations cultures and the contributions that they make to our state. I'm hesitant to go through what those proposals might be. Suffice to say, they'll all be carefully considered.
Why? I mean, it's been 3 terms.
Well, look, there's a lot to work through, and we'll continue to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.